Welcome into Rob Wright's Gen X Pop Culture, and on today's show, we're going to talk about one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies of the 80s, Beverly Hills Cop. Such a great movie. Love this film. It's such a fun watch, even after all these years. I just think it's just fantastic. Some of the reasons why I like it, I'll talk about today, and then I'll talk about some of my favorite scenes. Let's get into this great movie. First off, one of the main reasons why I love this movie so much is the soundtrack is amazing. You have the classic Axel Foley theme, which Eddie Murphy says that it'll probably follow him around till the day he dies. He said at his funeral they'll probably be playing it, which I think is awfully funny. It's a fun instrumental that just makes you think of Beverly Hills Cop every time you hear it. Another great song was done by the legendary Glenn Frey of the Eagles, called The Heat Is On. It is the title track and main theme song for the movie, and it was a chart topper. It got up to number 2 on the Hot 100, and it was the highest grossing or the highest ranking solo for any of the member of the Eagles. Not even Don Henley himself could beat this number 2 ranking that Glenn Frey got up to. So fantastic. Awesome. I love the Eagles. They're one of my favorite bands. And Glenn Frey, I miss him. It was sad to see him go back in 2016, but I think he did a wonderful job on The Heat Is On. Glenn Frey has a wonderful solo career, and I love him with the Eagles, but this is one of his great songs from his solo career on this movie soundtrack. And he's very involved in movies and TV shows. And it was really cool to see his involvement in that and hear some of his great music from that era in the 80s. So love that song. Another great song is a catchy song by the Pointer Sisters, especially in the chase scene. It's called Neutron Dance. Even though it sounds kind of funny, it's very catchy. And to be honest, this song is really about somebody that's down and out, but it's very upbeat. And you had a lot of that in the 70s and the 80s. So it fit right in, and it's just a fun song. And then the last song is Stirred Up by Patti LaBelle, and you hear it first when Axel's coming into Beverly Hills and he's taking all the sights, and then at the very end of the movie when he's leaving. That's a very catchy tune. I really like that song as well. There are a couple other great songs and great instrumentals on the soundtrack. It's fantastic. It was one of the highest grossing soundtracks in 1984 when this, or 1984, 85 when this came out. It came out in December 84. So it was great. My next reason for loving this movie is Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, made himself known through his stand-up routine and through Saturday Night Live. And then he got his big break in 48 Hours opposite Nick Nolte. And that was a good film. And then next, he did Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd, which is a hilarious film. Let me know if you want me to do that one on here. And then he got Beverly Hills Cop. Now, interesting enough, Eddie Murphy was supposed to be one of the original Ghostbusters. Yes, Dan Aykroyd had Eddie Murphy in mind, along with John Belushi, and those three were supposed to be the Ghostbusters. But Eddie Murphy turned down the ensemble Ghostbusters movie to star in a solo movie, and this is his first movie with the solo leading film. So he did a marvelous job in this. I love his ad-libs. I love his comedy. Eddie Murphy just was so hilarious in all of his movies during this time period from about 82 to about 89. He could not make a hit. I mean, every single one of his movies was a hit, and it was hilarious, and I really enjoyed his comedy and everything that he did. So this movie, I know there's all the talk about Deadpool being the highest grossing R-rated movie. At the time, it was Beverly Hills Cop. It was the highest grossing R-rated movie. And his ad-libbing is legendary. Eddie Murphy ad-libs in this movie, and as I talk about some of my favorite scenes, I will tell you some of the ad-libs that I found that Eddie Murphy did in this movie. He is an outstanding comedian. I just think he's just fantastic and great, and I just love him. I love his mannerisms. I love his ad-libbing. I love his jokes. I love that he can make fun of himself, make fun of his situation, make fun of just about anything and anybody. And you don't take it seriously because he's just so funny and laid back, and you buy into all of his characters. And he does a great job in this movie and several others. So Let's also talk about my third favorite reason. The supporting cast is great. Judge Reinhold is Rosewood. Judge Reinhold's hilarious in this movie. He's even better in the sequels, but he's just great in that role. John Ashton is Taggart, and he does a great job in this. He and Judge Reinhold are, the perfect duo to go with Axel, and they get into a lot of fun stuff in this movie, and it's just a great ensemble with those three. And then Ronny Cox comes in as Lieutenant Bogomil, and he's great in this as well as the leader, but he kind of learns about Axel and learns about the situation and when to go by the book and when to go off the book, and I think that's great. You see him in a lot of different roles. This one, he's more of the good guy, but like in RoboCop, he's very much the bad guy. And it's interesting to see him in this role as the good guy. And he has another interesting role in Beverly Hills Cop Part 2 that we may do later on this channel. Let me know if you want me to do that. Okay, let's bring on the slides and let's talk about some of my favorite scenes, especially since you guys want to see some of what's on this movie and not my ugly mug. So let me bring those on here real quick. This, of course, is the cover for the DVD. And here we go, the opening. All right, so my first favorite scene is the beginning of the movie. Axel Foley is trying to bust these guys who are scheming. He's selling cigarettes. He's hoping to get into where they're going from cigarettes to drugs, I believe. And he's trying to figure this out and get into the underworld so he can bust some people and stop crime. Pretty interesting thing, but he kind of works on his own, and that's part of the problem. Well, he's selling confiscated cigarettes that the cops had already confiscated, and the cops show up, and he gets into a little bit of trouble. And so one of the guys takes off in this awesome truck, and it's Neutron Dance. He's in the back of this, big truck that's just trying to get away from all the cops. It's a really cool chase scene to start the movie, and it's a great way to start it. And you get to see Detroit and really understand what Axel Foley's about and what his role in the police force is. So yeah, there's him in the back. It's really kind of cool what he does and how he gets through this. The other aspect of it is just how he's trying to get out of there, and he grabs on the chains and he's doing all kinds of things, but in the end, he can't really do much because he's stuck in the back of a moving truck, which I thought was interesting. The next scene, the next part of it, with this opening sequence that I just love, is the cops finally pull it out and they're like, Foley, we knew it had to be you, which is just hilarious. And Axel does end up going after one of the bad guys and gets him, but Inspector Todd's his boss, and him getting shoot out by him is hilarious. It's so funny. The next scene that I really like, and I'm kind of going to go in the order of the movie, is when he's first going into Beverly Hills. So here you got the Beverly Hills sign, and this is just a fun scene where he's looking at all the shops and he's reacting to everything and kind of amazed at how people live in California at the time. He checks in the Hotel Beverly Hills, and he's got just a duffel bag. And I didn't have a screenshot of him checking in at the front desk, but it's funny how he schemes his way in there, telling him he's a writer for Rolling Stone magazine and he's here to interview Michael Jackson. It was pretty funny, and it leads to this. As he's walking out, he laughs at the leather jackets and the stuff, which is kind of the Michael Jackson style, and you get the joke and the reference, especially right after mentioning Michael, which is just hilarious. So love that. And then he goes in to meet his friend at the art gallery, and it's pretty funny interactions here, and he meets her, and she's great. All right, my next favorite scene. He orders Taggart and Rosewood dinner. They haven't taken to him, and then he goes down to the stand, and there's a cameo from Damon Wayans, one of his first roles, his first cameos in a film. He's asking for bananas rather than having to pay for the whole buffet, and he gives them bananas, and he's like, "Shh, don't tell him I give them to you." He's like, "Oh, okay, I won't." And what does he do with the bananas? He puts them in the tailpipe, which I think is hilarious. Banana tailpipe scene. And I don't think this would really work on anybody today, but I just think this is just a hilarious scene. And they play it up. But I know that this picture is actually from later on in the movie, but it shows Eddie's, Axel's trying to, get to know these guys. He knows that they're following him, and he takes it lightheartedly. He's going to try and show him a good time, but also try and find out who killed his friend, which is really what he's trying to do down there. All right. The next scene that I really like is the other team that watches him. He goes to Victor Maitland's house, and this is going to be confronting him at the club. And these two guys try to talk to him and find out what he's doing. He tells him he's having a picnic, offers him a beer, and then he sees Maitland leaving, and so he backs up and goes after him. Ironically, there's a DeLorean right there in that shot, which is kind of cool. So it's interesting, the contrast to the cars in the neighborhood. And then he goes into the restaurant where Maitland is, and it's a private club, so he can't really get very far. And this is where Eddie Murphy ad-libs. So they had some of this scene written, and they didn't like what they had written. So they went to Eddie Murphy in his trailer and said, hey, here's the scene. What do you think? And Eddie Murphy just improvised and wrote the whole scene in the dialogue where he's pretending to have some kind of disease and pretending to have a relationship with the bad guy. Very funny, all ad-libbed by him. And, of course, he's confronting Maitland and his henchmen. He gets to have a fight with the henchman, throws him on the food table, and the henchman's kind of embarrassed right here. And then he talks to Maitland, and he basically tells him, I know you killed my friend. And he gets arrested again. So, really cool. And, of course, the final scene that I love is the shootout in the mansion. And it starts with him getting captured in the warehouse, and they take the girl, and he gets out of it, and Rosewood is with him. And Rosewood goes with him to the mansion to rescue the girl. Taggart shows up, and then they're trying to follow Axel in. They climb over the wall, which is just a hilarious scene with Taggart and Rosewood. They're covering Axel as he goes in. Billy, of course, does his usual Billy thing, and this is what's so funny about it. This is why I love Judge Reinhold in the movie. He comes out, police, freeze! They don't have the numbers, and the bad guys start shooting at him like crazy, and they duck down behind the pillars. Taggart gets all upset at him. Next time you do that, Billy, I'll shoot you myself, which is just how well these guys work. And you see this throughout the movie, which makes it so great. It makes those two such great characters. Axel gets in there. He takes out the henchman who's coming after him with a shotgun. And then Maitland has the girl. And that's when Bogomil shows up with the rest of the police. And they get Maitland. And then finally, after they get Maitland and reinforcements get there, Billy does this thing again. Please freeze, which is just hilarious again. What makes it so funny. And this time he's got the numbers on the side and everybody surrenders. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. There's Axel looking on as Bogomil learns a lesson how to improvise by lying to the chief of police and letting him know that his role was a little bit different and how it went about so that nobody got in trouble. And you see he got shot in the shoulder and he's leaving Beverly Hills, and they're kind of walking him out to keep an eye on him to make sure he actually leaves. He gives them both robes, and then he tells them, hey, come on, follow me. We'll go get a beer or something. So he knows another joint. Yeah, that's another scene that I really couldn't show scenes of because it's a family show, but there is the strip joint scene, and it's pretty funny. And he gives us this one last thing from the strip joint where they bust those two guys. Anyway, those are my favorite scenes. This is why I love this movie. It's hilarious with Eddie Murphy. The other aspect about this movie is just very character-driven. The great part about this movie and the writing in this movie and the ad-libs, they work because you're focused in on the character and their reaction to the situations going around them, which is what I think is a key element in filmmaking and telling a good story. Is that it's character driven. And that's the whole key to this comedy, the whole key to this movie. So if you haven't checked out Beverly Hills Cop, I suggest you check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's not a very long movie, but it's a very good movie. It's very well paced, very well done. I think it's, between an 8 and a 10, one of the best movies ever made, and certainly one of the best comedies of the 80s. What are your thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop? What are some of your favorite scenes? Let's have a good discussion. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.